How long has it been since you truly breathed? Not just the act of inhaling and exhaling, but a real breath, gentle, complete, and unhurried. Perhaps you are caught up in the whirlwind, where everything demands to be faster, better, more impressive, and maybe that is why you always feel like you are not enough. Not good enough, not peaceful enough, not lovable enough, not safe enough. But what if I told you, right here, right now, that you already are enough? That you do not need to go anywhere far to find peace. That you do not need to become someone else to live authentically. A Zen master once said, "The mind is like water. Just stop stirring it, and it will naturally become still. And in that stillness, you will see yourself. Not the version of you that is tired from carrying too much, but the true, quiet, and clear essence you have always had." Tonight, I invite you to take a journey with me. Not a journey to discover something new, but a journey back to what has always been within you. Together, we will explore Zen stories, small dialogues that carry deep wisdom. We will listen to the teachings of the Buddha, not as dogma, but as whispers in the quiet of the night. And we will learn how to sit still, simply to be, not to become. If you are ready, let your breath guide you. And in this quiet moment, let us begin to explore. What exactly is Zen meditation? Zen meditation does not teach you to change yourself, nor does it ask you to become enlightened, perfect, or extraordinary. Zen meditation simply invites you to let go, to release layer by layer of thoughts, to let go of expectations, to even drop the anxiety of trying to become someone special. In the world of Zen, peace does not come from adding more, but from removing everything that is not you. That is why the old Zen masters often said, "The path does not lead anywhere, it simply brings you back. Back to yourself, whole and unedited." When we ask, what is meditation? Many people picture still settings, poised sitting postures, or chants in Sanskrit. But to Zen, meditation is not about form. It is about presence. Zen does not require you to believe in a deity or follow complicated rituals. Zen is simply a way of seeing clearly, seeing deeply, and seeing things exactly as they are. When you are washing the dishes and only washing the dishes. When you are walking and simply walking. Without distractions, without judgment, without rushing. That is already meditation. Zen teaches us that every moment in life, if lived fully, can become a doorway to awakening. You do not need to sit cross-legged beneath an ancient tree, nor withdraw from the world to find enlightenment. Because Zen is not outside of life, it is life itself. Happening right now, in every movement, every breath, every tiny sound. If you are truly present, then you are already in meditation. A famous Zen saying goes, "Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water." Nothing outside changes, but the one experiencing it has changed. No more clinging, no more straining, only pure presence, as it is. That is the spirit of Zen meditation, not going anywhere, just staying, deeply and clearly. In this moment, in a small village, there once lived a farmer with his son and a horse. One day, the horse ran away, disappearing from the stable. The neighbors came over to express their sympathy. "How unfortunate. What will you do now?" The farmer simply replied, "Maybe it is bad luck. Who can say?" A few days later, the horse returned, bringing 3 wild horses along with it. The neighbors rushed over again, full of excitement. "How lucky you are." Once more, the farmer said, "Maybe it is good luck, who can say?" Then, the farmer's son tried riding one of the wild horses, fell off, and broke his leg. The neighbors came back, shaking their heads. "What bad luck." And again, the farmer said, "Maybe." A week later, soldiers came to the village to recruit all able-bodied young men. Everyone's sons were taken, except for the farmer's son with the broken leg. This time, the neighbors exclaimed, "You truly are lucky." The farmer smiled and replied, "Maybe." The story may seem simple, but it carries a profound lesson from Zen. Life never unfolds in a straight line. What we think is bad luck today might be the beginning of something good tomorrow, and vice versa. When we rush to label something as good or bad, we trap ourselves in judgment and let fear or hope control our emotions. Zen does not teach us to be indifferent. It teaches us to open our hearts to the uncertainty of life. We do not have to know the outcome. We do not have to control everything. We just need to be fully present in the moment, without resistance, without attachment. Because like that farmer, you too can learn to say, maybe, not out of apathy, but from learning how to rest peacefully in an unpredictable world. And it is in that gentle release that your mind begins to settle. An old Zen master was once given a precious porcelain cup by a student, handcrafted, glazed in ivory, rimmed with fine gold. The student told him to store it safely and only use it on very special occasions. But the master used the cup every day, pouring tea as usual, calmly and without hesitation. One day, someone asked, "Aren't you afraid of accidentally breaking it?" The Zen master smiled. "In my mind, this cup is already broken." That answer was not pessimistic. It revealed a deep wisdom of Zen. Everything is impermanent. Every object, every person, every relationship, they are all on a journey of change. Whether we realize it or not, the porcelain cup, no matter how beautiful, will one day break. Knowing that does not make us cold. It helps us cherish each moment more deeply while we still have it. In life, we often try to keep things from changing: a relationship, a living situation, an emotional state, but trying to hold back the waves on the ocean only exhausts us. Impermanence is not a curse, it is the nature of life. Because everything changes, pain will pass. Because nothing lasts forever, we learn to love without clinging. Because all things will eventually leave, every moment we share becomes sacred. When you understand that the cup is already broken, you drink your tea with full awareness, slowly, respectfully. And when you understand that life is the same, you will live as if every single day is a special occasion. One day, a young Zen student came to his master. Completely overwhelmed, he said, "Master, I cannot take it anymore. Lately, I have been so easily angered. Just one wrong word from someone, and I feel like I am about to explode." The master nodded, poured tea, and gently said, "Good. The next time anger comes, invite it in, and pour it a cup of tea." This answer might seem strange at first, but it captures the very heart of meditation. Do not run away from your emotions, recognize them, welcome them, and observe them like a guest. In Zen, emotions are not enemies. They are simply clouds drifting across the sky of awareness. They come and go, without needing to be chased away or clung to. Trouble only arises when we identify ourselves with the anger. I am hot-tempered. I am a terrible person. I am unworthy. But in mindfulness, you will see clearly. Anger is arising. It is here, and it will pass. Instead of being swept away by its fiery energy, all you need to do is sit still and acknowledge, anger is here. Observe it. Is it hot or cold? Does it sit in your chest? Or in your belly? Why has it come? And if you are quiet enough, you may see that anger is simply an expression of pain that has not been heard, of broken expectations, of helplessness too difficult to speak aloud. When you invite anger in for tea, you are no longer its victim. You are its host, not to control it, but to understand and embrace it. Zen does not try to eliminate emotion. Meditation does not turn you into a numb, emotionless stone. On the contrary, it helps you become more authentic with yourself, able to feel deeply, but not be carried away. You can feel anger, but there is no need to destroy. You can feel sadness, but still walk gently through it like walking through a soft rain. And when you can do that, you will see, no emotion is wrong. There is only a perspective not yet wide enough to hold it fully. When people speak of enlightenment, they often imagine some transcendent state, a realm free from suffering, free from burdens, where a person becomes perfectly wise and detached from the world. But Zen does not see it that way. In Zen, enlightenment is not a destination, but a way of living. It is not found far away, it can be discovered right here. In the simple act of washing dishes, walking down the street, cooking a meal, or brushing a child's hair. There is a famous Zen saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. This statement may seem paradoxical, but it reveals a profound truth. The outer actions remain the same, but the mind behind them has changed completely. No more rushing, no more striving, no more trying to finish things quickly. Each action is performed with complete presence. Chopping wood is simply chopping wood. Carrying water is simply carrying water. There is no I am doing, only the action itself. No separation between the doer and the deed, only life flowing naturally. In daily life, we often miss out on life itself because our minds are constantly elsewhere. While eating, we think about work. While walking, we replay yesterday's argument. While talking with a loved one, we sneak a look at our phone. We live as if we are always on the way to somewhere else. And so we are never truly present where we are. Meditation invites us to return, not with force, but with a gentle curiosity toward the present moment. Because when you take a sip of tea and truly taste its aroma, its warmth, the slight bitterness on your tongue, that is already a moment of awakening. When you are sweeping the yard and hear the soft swish of the broom against the tiles, see each leaf curling under the sunlight, that is already a doorway into mindfulness. You do not need to retreat into the deep mountains or a monastery. Because the greatest temple is life itself, happening every day. Zen teaches that in even the smallest things, if you are fully present, you are touching the sacred. Not because the act itself is special, but because your attention brings everything to life. And in that way, you are not just living, you are waking up inside your own life. There is an old Zen story about a monk walking through the forest when he is suddenly chased by a ferocious tiger. He runs as fast as he can, but the tiger draws closer. Desperate, he spots the edge of a cliff and grabs onto a vine. Lowering himself down, above, the tiger snarls and waits. Below, another tiger prowls at the bottom of the canyon. Suspended in midair, it seems all escape is cut off. Just then, he notices a wild strawberry growing from the cliffside. Without hesitation, he reaches out, plucks it, pops it into his mouth, and smiles. How sweet it is. That story may sound imaginary at first, but if you look closely, it mirrors our lives. Each of us is suspended somewhere between worry and fear, between what we have lost and what has yet to come. Above is the pressure of the past. Below is the uncertainty of the future. And in between is the fragile, fleeting present, like a ripe red strawberry. If we keep fearing, keep looking up or down, keep obsessing over what if, we will miss the only flavor that is truly present, the sweetness of this moment. Zen does not deny the reality that life includes danger, loss, and imperfection, but instead of letting fear consume us, Zen teaches us to see the wonder even in the midst of that imperfection. Even when life feels shaky, even when everything seems out of control, there is always something beautiful quietly present. A beam of sunlight, a soft breeze, a gentle gaze, a strawberry growing out of a cliff. When we live with that awareness, we stop waiting for perfect safety to allow ourselves happiness. We do not need ideal circumstances to allow ourselves to smile. Because we realize, life has never waited for us to be okay before offering its beauty. It is always here, whether on a cliffside or at the edge of a ravine. And the strawberry is always sweet. In everyday life, we often think of compassion as a moral gesture, a gift from the one who has to the one who does not. We help because we see others suffer. We comfort because we see someone in pain. We love because we believe we should be good people. But from the Zen perspective, compassion does not come from a place above others. It comes from a deep realization that there is no real boundary between me and you. When the mind becomes still, when presence is complete, when the narrow self no longer dominates, then compassion does not have to be created, it arises naturally. Like breath, we no longer help out of duty. But because their pain echoes within our own body and mind, there is no longer, I am being compassionate, only connection flowing through us. Gently and without limit, there is a Zen story that tells of a young student who came to his master and asked, "How can I develop greater compassion?" The master did not answer right away. Instead, he raised his hand, pointed to a passerby, and said, "Imagine that person will die 3 years from now." At first, the student was confused, but then he understood. When we know our time together is limited, that no one will stay forever, we stop blaming, demand less, let go of our coldness, and we begin to love more, not with words, but with our full presence. Mindfulness, in the spirit of Zen, is not just about being aware of your breath, your steps, or your words. It is also about realizing that the person in front of you longs to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. When we are fully present with someone, without judgment, without distraction, without trying to fix them, our presence becomes a form of deep healing. Sometimes, you do not need to offer advice. Simply being there, fully and silently, is already embracing them with your entire heart. And just like that, compassion is no longer some lofty quality we must work for years to attain. It becomes the natural result of a heart that has learned to see others as no longer others. It is when you understand that you cannot truly be happy while the world around you suffers. It is when you quietly pour someone a glass of water, without needing anyone to notice. It is when you listen to someone crying, without rushing to say that everything will be okay. In Zen, compassion is never something you have to perform. It is simply the natural posture of a heart no longer divided. One day, someone asked a Zen master, "Master, what is Buddha?" The monk looked up and simply replied, 3 pounds of flax." The answer stunned the questioner, because it made no logical sense. But that is how Zen works. It does not hand you more knowledge. It strikes at the very place where you are trying to understand. And in the moment you stop clinging to thought, perhaps, you will see. Meditation does not invite you to become a more perfect version of yourself. It does not ask you to conquer your ego to become a Buddha. It simply asks you, who are you, before you were given a name? Before you had a job, a title, a gender, an opinion? That is what the old Zen masters called your original face, the face you had before your parents were born. Why return to that place? Because in life, we gradually forget our essence. We wear masks. I am a serious person. I am a failure. I am unworthy. I must be strong. And then we live out those roles, day after day, until one day, we no longer recognize who we really are. As a Zen master once said, some people wear masks their entire life. When they finally take them off, they no longer remember their real face. Zen does not tell us to destroy the ego by force. It simply teaches us to look directly at it, to observe every idea we have about me, and see that all of it comes and goes. Yesterday you were confident. Today you are sad. If you are those things, then who are you when the emotions disappear? It turns out, what we call ourselves is nothing but a stream of passing phenomena, like clouds drifting across the sky. And if you no longer need to hold on to some fixed idea of self, you begin to feel lighter, freer. When the ego is no longer the center of the universe, the world suddenly opens up. You do not need to always be right. You do not need to prove your worth. You do not need to stand out. You only need to be present, honestly, simply, and fully. And then, you no longer need to search for your original face, because you are already living in it. Right here, without decoration, without trying. No success, no failure. Just you, whole, as you are. Now, if you have listened this far, perhaps your mind is already beginning to slow down. So, let us take a few brief moments to sit together, doing nothing, just to feel ourselves. Find a comfortable position. You can sit in a chair, on the floor, or lie down if you prefer. There is no need to force or correct anything. Just whatever feels easy for you is enough. Now, gently close your eyes, or softly lower your gaze if that feels safer. And begin to notice your breath. No need to change the way you are breathing. Just quietly observe it. Feel the breath entering, cool, soothing. Feel the breath leaving, warm, gentle. Just like that, each cycle, each wave, like small ripples lapping the shore. When your mind begins to wander, thinking about what you just heard, or about tomorrow, simply bring it back to the breath. No blame, no pressure, no rush. Just like guiding a child gently back home, tenderly and patiently. Now, expand your awareness beyond your breath, Can you feel your body? Are your shoulders tight? Is your forehead furrowed? Let go a little. You do not need to be perfect. Just softer. And then, let your mind rest in that space. No need to understand anything. No need to feel anything special. Just being here is already enough. Because this full presence is the deepest foundation of peace. So you have walked with me through stories, reflections, and moments of stillness, where the simplest things held the most surprising depth. And now, as your body and mind begin to settle, as your breath grows gentler, I invite you to pause just a little longer to listen to what still echoes within. Remember, everything that happens for a reason. Whether it is a surge of uncontrollable anger, a sudden loss, or an ordinary day that passes quietly, all of it is a perfect part of the living flow. Every experience, every person you meet, every twist in the road, is a fragment of reality trying to guide you home to yourself. As the Buddha once said, nothing exists independently. Everything arises in dependence. That means, no emotion stands alone. No person is truly isolated. No suffering is meaningless. Everything leans on everything else, interacting and transforming within a deep web of connection that we often forget. And if you can sit still, even for just a few minutes each day, and look deeply into yourself, you will see it clearly. There is nothing more you need to find. Everything you need is already here, within you, not tomorrow, not when everything is perfect, but right now, in each breath, each step, each mindful gaze. If this moment brings you peace, even just a little, then that is already a seed. And if you wish, you can water that seed each day, by returning to the present moment, by listening to others with your full presence, and by holding yourself, as if you, too, are worthy of love, just like anyone else in this world. Perhaps the hardest part is not sitting still, but having the courage to look inward, because when we truly pause, we see everything we have been avoiding, an old wound still unhealed, a sadness not yet named, a truth about ourselves we have not dared to face. But it is through that deep seeing that the door to healing truly opens. Not through running away, but through presence, through staying with ourselves and with what is happening. You do not need to be positive all the time. You do not need to always be strong, always in control, always right. In meditation, there is no ideal version of you that you must become. You are allowed to be sad. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed not to know. And that, not knowing, what Zen calls beginner's mind, is the very place where true wisdom begins. Because only when you release all that you think you know, can you truly see. Awareness does not come from knowing a lot, but from seeing clearly one thing. Right now, seeing the breath coming in, seeing sunlight pouring through the window, seeing anger forming in your chest without being pulled away by it, seeing the pain in another without judging, and then, very naturally, from that clear seeing, compassion arises, gently like a wisp of smoke, without being summoned. Sometimes, you do not need to do something grand to change the world. Just return to your breath, and in that moment, you have already changed how you show up to the world. When you listen to someone without interrupting, when you look at a flower without naming it, when you wash a dish without thinking of what comes next, these are not meaningless acts. This is meditation in everyday life. It is sacredness quietly blooming in the small things. And you, without needing to become anyone else, can begin living that way. Right now, have you ever wondered why you always feel like something is missing? Even when things seem fine, your job, your family, your relationships, there's still a vague emptiness inside. Hard to name? Perhaps it is because we have grown used to living by expectations. The expectation that we must be more, must succeed, must be better than yesterday, better than others, better than something we cannot even define. But Zen teaches us, there is nothing to achieve. There is no destination ahead, only life unfolding. Right here, when we stop trying to perfect ourselves, we begin to see beauty in imperfection, like a yellowing leaf that carries its own hue, like the crack in a clay cup that lets in the light, like you, with your wounds, your contradictions, your tenderness, sitting here, already whole in your own way. Peace does not lie in everything being okay. It lies in the fact that even when things are not okay, you can still sit. Breathe in, breathe out, and feel yourself alive. And in that moment, even if it is brief, you are no longer a victim of circumstance. No longer dragged by, should have, or what if. You are simply a human being, fully present in this moment, and that is enough. So do not wait for everything to fall into place before allowing yourself peace. Do not wait until your heart is completely still to begin the journey of awakening. Begin right where you are, with the state you are in, with the person you are, even if that feels messy, incomplete, or uncertain. Meditation does not wait for you to be ready. It simply whispers, "You have been enough, all along." And if there is one thing you can carry with you after all the stories and reflections of tonight, let it be this: you do not need to strive to become someone. You only need to be present, with honesty and gentleness. Because each moment you are truly here is a moment you are living your life most fully. You are not an island. Even on days when you feel lost, even when you ask, "Does anyone truly understand me?" there is a deeper truth quietly present. You have never been separate from life. You are breath, born from the lungs of distant forests. You are light, traveling millions of years from the sun to touch your skin. You are tears, carrying the memories of ancestors, of generations who lived, who suffered, who loved. You are not standing apart, you are a thread, a breath, a wave in the vast ocean we call us. Zen teaches that there is no isolated self. What we call I is a stream of constant movement, of body, of mind, of emotion, of social and environmental conditions. All of it changes, comes, and goes. And when you look deeply, you will see, there is nothing to cling to, and nothing that needs to be removed. Everything simply is. There is nothing that must be held on to. There is nothing that truly needs to be fixed. Just see clearly, stay with what is, and let go of the inner resistance. In the moment you stop struggling to become a version of yourself, you begin to return. Return to life, without strain, without hurry, and in that moment, everything around you shifts as well. The sky might still be gray, but you begin to see a gentle depth in each layer of cloud. The street may still be crowded, but you no longer feel rushed. The person across from you may still not fully understand you, but you no longer need them to, because you have already made peace with yourself. This state does not come from the outside. It arises from letting go within, a kind of freedom that does not need applause, does not need perfection, does not need anyone's approval. All it needs is for you to be here, honestly, softly, and wholly. And there will come a time when you no longer need another answer. No need for someone to tell you what to do, how to live, or which way to go. Because you will realize that no matter how wise the advice, it cannot touch the core of you, unless you have first stopped long enough to hear the voice within. Life is not a puzzle to solve, but a piece of music to be heard with the whole heart. Every note, whether high or low, has its place in the symphony of your life. And what you need is not to change the melody, but to be still enough to feel its true resonance. Sometimes, sadness does not come to make you suffer, but to make you pause. Confusion is not a failure. It is a sign that you are standing near a turning point. And the moments when you feel most lost are often the moments life is gently pushing you off the worn path to show you one you never dared to take. Zen does not promise you will always feel good. It does not deny the truth that life can be cruel and pain can be deep. But Zen invites you into a different way of being, not running, not bracing, not ignoring, but opening your eyes fully to what is present. With courage and compassion, as if this were the first time you were truly alive. When you live that way, you begin to see the miracle in the smallest things. A drop of water falling from a lotus leaf, a tender glance from a stranger, a warm breath leaving your chest like a quiet blessing. And you will stop thinking you need to do something great to be worthy, because you will understand. You do not need to do anything. You only need to be present. And that is already beautiful, already deep, already true. We have gone so far in trying to become someone the world will accept, and in doing so, many of us carry a heavy burden, the burden of always smiling, always being positive, always being okay. But deep down, maybe you are tired of pretending, tired of fearing people will walk away if they see the real you. But do you know? That very tiredness is your soul's message, that it is time to come home. Not to some ideal, but to yourself, just as you are, with all your wounds, your longing, your fragility, and the parts of you still unnamed. When you allow yourself to be real, even if not perfect, even if messy, that is when healing begins. Healing does not come from erasing pain, but from holding it in a gaze that no longer fears it. You can sit still, breathe slowly, and whisper to yourself, I do not need to be strong right now. I just need to be honest. And if that sentence comes from a deep place, a place that no longer needs to be understood, it becomes a kind of miracle. Because the most sacred thing is not found in temples or lofty theories, but in the moment you dare to look at yourself without judgment, without avoidance, without makeup. Zen calls that seeing your true nature, your original essence. Nothing added, nothing taken away. And if you can live from that place, you will no longer need to seek peace. Because you are peace. You may be listening to these words in a dark room, or on a late night, when the world outside has gone quiet and only the sound of your breath remains, like a thread gently tying you back to reality. In that space, allow yourself to let go of everything. Let go of the need to understand all that has been shared. Let go of the desire to feel something special. Just stay, as if sitting beside an old friend. No need to say much. Just be there, because it is in that simple presence that the sacred begins to happen. You return. Not to the past, not to a memory, but to a self that has never been lost, even through every detour, every storm, every moment of forgetting who you were. But you cannot lose what is a part of you. You can only temporarily forget. And now, as everything around you softens, as there is nothing left to do, no one left to become, you can begin to listen again. Not with your ears, but with the silence opening within. A kind of silence you do not create. That does not come from effort, but arises the moment you stop searching. Have you ever felt like you are living too fast? So fast you forget why you started? That you are always busy. Always have something to do. Always something that keeps you from sitting still? But then, at night, when you lie alone, with nothing left to worry about, you feel empty. As if you have forgotten something truly important. Maybe you have forgotten how to touch life, not through a screen. Not through a goal. Not through applause or praise, but through pure presence. A child does not need a reason to laugh at soap bubbles. Does not need to be taught to look up at the sky and feel wonder. You were once like that. But over time, you learned to grow up, and in that journey, you lost something innocent, something real. But Zen does not ask you to become a child again. It only invites you to shed the heavy layers you put on out of fear, and allow your heart to breathe again. To feel again. To be present again. Like the first time you knew what love was. What gratitude was. When even a falling leaf could move you. And when you live that way, you no longer ask, "Who am I?" or "What is the meaning of life?" Because in each moment, life answers you, not with words, but with an aliveness that cannot be explained. Like the early morning when a bird's song soars above the rooftops. Like the soft tapping of rain on an old window pane. Like the glance of a stranger, wordless, but warming. And in that, you will no longer need something grand. You will simply feel grateful. Grateful to still be here. Grateful that your heart still beats. Grateful that you can still feel pain, because that, too, makes you more human, more real, more connected to the world. You do not need to be a Zen master. You do not need to retreat to a remote mountain. You do not need to leave the world to find peace. Because peace is not found elsewhere, it is in how you walk through this world. In the marketplace, in the mess, in the imperfections and collisions, without losing the softness in your heart. It is when you can love without owning, say no without coldness, stay with someone in pain without being swallowed by their suffering, because you know, you are not here to save anyone. But your sincere presence might be the gentle light a lost soul needs right now. And in that way, you live without titles, without striving, and still become a lantern. A quiet lantern, but bright enough for yourself, and for those who are meant to cross your path. You may have thought that to live in peace, you needed a perfectly quiet space, a gentle schedule, favorable conditions, and a mind completely unburdened. But then you realized the truth isn't that way. Life never stops so you can meditate. Nor does it pause because you are tired. Surprises still arrive. Unexpected people still show up. Unwanted situations keep happening. And if you wait until everything is calm to truly live, you might wait your entire life. Zen teaches us to see things differently. You don't need life to be calm to find tranquility. Find tranquility within the very heartbeat of life's noise. This form of peace doesn't come from circumstances, but from your inner choosing. It's when you stand in a bustling market and your heart remains light. It's when you can breathe deeply even while facing discomfort. It's when nobody decides today whether you are happy or sad. Because you've learned to return to yourself, without relying on anyone. without depending on anything, just by being honest enough to stay with the present moment. Sometimes, we believe happiness must come with a grand reason, an achievement, recognition, love, or socially admired success. But if you look closely, your most peaceful moments are often small and unnoticed. An afternoon by the window, holding a warm cup of tea, listening to wind rustling through leaves, holding hands with someone you love on an old street, quietly washing the dishes after dinner, feeling warm water on your hands and a soft calm in your heart. These are moments no one sees, no one applauds, but they are etched in your heart as something sacred. And you begin to understand, happiness doesn't lie in how much you own or how much fame you receive, but in how present you are with yourself in everyday moments. Each time you sit without your phone, each time you look at someone without judgment, each time you breathe slowly instead of reacting. These are your mindfulness practices in daily life. No need to sit cross-legged or chant. Just be genuine to the point you can stop pretending. Along this journey, you will gradually realize, no one can walk home to yourself for you. No matter how many lectures you listen to, books you read, or courses you attend, at some point you must face yourself alone. You must ask, am I truly living? Or am I merely existing? Am I feeling each day as it passes? Or am I counting down to some future moment when I feel allowed to live? Zen invites you to put down the clock. No countdown, no waiting for when this happens. Simply live, right now. Right here, in your body and your life circumstances. Without trying to become someone else. Without straining to please anyone. Without needing to mold yourself to a standard. Just live as your true self. With an open heart, a mindful gaze, and compassion first for yourself. There is a strange thing you will begin to realize as you go deeper into Zen practice. The more you seek peace externally, the more you fall into anxiety, the harder you try to control life. The more you feel adrift, the more you change yourself to be accepted. The further you stray from your true nature. And so, amid these seemingly noble efforts, you grow weary, as if fighting life instead of flowing with it, because Zen is not a self-reform mission. Not a quest to become better by someone else's standard. It is a gradual unlayering, a gentle release of identities, expectations, and shoulds we've built from society, family, past conditioning, and one day, in a surprising simplicity, you will find yourself just sitting, no longer playing any roles. No need to hide, no need to impress, just you. In your raw, fragile, yet deeply resonant truth, and in that moment, you will realize something you may never have realized before. You do not need to do anything to deserve love. You don't need to be strong to earn respect. You don't need to be extraordinary to be accepted. You only need to be present as you are, and that is enough. Truly enough. Even if you haven't quite learned to love yourself. Life hasn't withdrawn the gift of your breath. The earth still spins. The sun still rises. Leaves still turn gold. Birds still sing, as if reminding you, your existence is a natural part of this universe, no more, no less, requiring no proof, irreplaceable. If you can feel that truth in every cell of your being, you will no longer feel alone in this world. You'll stop trying to stand out. You'll stop meaningless competitions. Because you will have discovered the deepest truth a living being can see. Everything is in its rightful place, including you. And your task is not to fix life but to dive deeper into this reality as it unfolds, where each joy, each wound, each person who enters your life are subtle lessons, not to rush through them, but to stay long enough, listen deeply, and from there, awaken. Not loudly, not for show, just a gentle realization. Everything that has been, is, and will be, carries a meaning the intellect cannot grasp. Only a silent heart can sense. And when you live from that place, you no longer seek the meaning of life. Because you become the meaning manifesting in every moment. As you continue living from that presence, you will discover that your worries, restlessness, and anxieties gradually lose their hold, not because they vanish, but because you no longer cling to them as part of your identity. You no longer see emotions as enemies to be crushed or fears to flee. You begin to see clearly. All the things that caused you suffering, anger, jealousy, shame, disappointment, hurt, they are deeply human, vulnerable, and need to be heard and held, not suppressed or denied. And when you return to listen to yourself, without judgment, without rushing to fix, you will find a small child within you who cries silently, longing to be seen, held, acknowledged. And when you rest with your nameless anger, your vague sadness, your smoldering memories, what happens isn't that you disappear into them, but rather, they dissolve in your gaze, because no longer denied or suppressed. And in that dissolution, you sense a strange kind of freedom, not loud, not spectacular, but utterly real. A freedom not born of controlling circumstances, but of not being bound by your reactions to them. You no longer get swept up by inner waves. Rather, you begin to live like deep water, a depth that welcomes the waves without disturbing the lake bottom. Stable even through heavy rain, and quiet enough for the moon's reflection to shine, clear, intact, unshattered. And from that place, you will realize life isn't a series of challenges to overcome but a stream carrying you home, over and over, even through paths that feel so confusing, so unexpected, so heartbreaking. But if you look deeply, you will know everything is the careful arrangement of an unseen hand, not to hurt you, but to open you, soften you, guide you to a place where your heart can breathe, bloom, and be reborn, not in some mystical sense, but simply, meaning you begin to live differently, see differently, and be present in a new way, not from a wound, but from understanding, not from fear of loss, but from gratitude, not from craving control, but from a deep trust that you can stand in life's current, fragile yet unbroken, silent yet fully alive. And then, when you remain long enough in that stillness, you begin to understand that peace is not a reward for those who can endure more, nor is it a gift of fate given to those luckier than you. It is a natural power, always present within you. It is just that you have grown so accustomed to living in noise that you no longer hear its gentle voice. You've gotten used to always reacting, always defending, always bracing yourself, that you began to believe life demands you always be ready to fight. But in truth, life does not require you to be strong, it only asks that you be honest, that you soften, that you be brave enough to no longer hide, trusting enough to shed the armor that has grown so heavy, and humble enough to admit you do not know everything. Because sometimes, it is in the very moment you admit you are lost, that the first light begins to enter, not because someone led you out of the darkness, but because you finally stopped closing your eyes and began to see. Not the outside world, but what is inside, the old cracks, the forgotten corners, the dreams never spoken aloud. And in that moment, you will see something the mind never told you: that you do not need to heal to be enough. You are already enough, even if you are still broken, still hurting, still uncertain. But it is only when you stop trying to piece yourself together into some perfect version that you begin to truly live. As a human being who knows how to cry when in pain, how to stay silent when there are no words, how to let go when it's time, how to step back when the heart can hold no more, and how to smile for no particular reason, just because you are still alive. Still breathing, still here in this moment, still part of life, even the smallest, quietest part, but no less essential. And when you see that, you are no longer afraid of being left behind. You no longer need someone to validate your worth. You are no longer shaken by life's impermanence. Because you understand, everything is happening exactly as it needs to, not sooner, not later, not less, not more. You just have to not miss it. Do not let your hurried thoughts cloud the quiet beauty that is constantly unfolding in ordinary things. The sound of leaves brushing in the wind. The moment your hand rests on your chest and feels your heartbeat. The glance you give yourself in the mirror and realize nothing needs fixing. You are still here, whole, unembellished, undescribed, unproven, needing to be no one else. Just living a life that is mindful, gentle, and deep. And when you allow yourself to live that way, without rushing, without forcing, without pretending, you will start to feel something you may have lost long ago. The feeling of being yourself without shame, without guilt, without needing permission. You will not need permission to slow down your breath, to feel sadness when it comes, to say no when it is too much, to be silent when your heart has nothing left to say. And within that permission, a new space begins to open inside you. A space you once thought could only be found far away, on a quiet mountain, at a retreat, or in some special book. But it was always there. Within you. You just were never taught how to return. Because the world taught you so many ways to go outward, to conquer, to strive, to achieve, to perform, to prove, but no one ever taught you how to stay with yourself. To listen to the very quiet, very fragile parts of you that you dismissed as weak and unworthy of keeping. And so, day by day, you became a version that was easier for the world to accept, but harder for you to recognize. Harder for you to carry. You became tired, not from doing too much, but from living too far from your center. From fighting against the natural current of your being. But Zen is not a technique to make you more positive, more successful, or more resilient. It is a quiet invitation to stop running, to stand still, to face and touch what you usually avoid or suppress, not to drown in it, but to see that what you fear the most is often not what you think. It is simply a part of your inner world that was once rejected, misunderstood, or silenced. Now it is knocking, not to disturb you, but to be welcomed home. And when you begin to embrace those parts, the anger, the sadness, the jealousy, the painful memories, you stop feeling fragmented. You stop feeling chaotic or lost. Because you are slowly becoming whole. Slowly becoming a real person, not perfect, not polished, not posing. And that is a freedom so profound, not because no one interferes, but because you no longer reject yourself. And from that moment, You begin to live differently, not reacting to the world, but living from within, from knowing who you are, from humility toward life, from gratitude for small things, and from a quiet awareness that does not need to be named, hung on the wall like a certificate, or proven to anyone, because you finally know, the one who understands you most, who loves you most, who believes in you most, does not have to be anyone else. It is you. It is the version of you breathing right now, being here, listening, and ready to relearn what it means to live without running from yourself. When you are patient enough to stay with yourself, you will see that life is no longer a series of problems to solve, no longer a map with destinations to reach, but an open space. A place where you are allowed to live, to be wrong, to learn, to fall, to rise, to continue, not perfectly, but humanly, authentically, and completely in each moment. Because Zen does not make you extraordinary, it makes you honest. It does not lift you into the sky. It teaches you how to touch the ground with your whole presence, with your feet, your breath, your gaze, your heart. And when you live with that quality, you realize you don't need to do something grand to change your life. Sometimes, all it takes is the courage to sit still for one more minute, to face your emotion one more time, to breathe slower even when your mind wants to run, to say, "It's okay," when everything feels like it's falling apart. And just like that, you have changed the course of your life. Because the deepest transformation is not in what you do, but in how you are present, in the energy you bring to each action, each word, each choice, each glance. When you are truly awake, you do not need to do anything spectacular. Your presence alone will move like a cool breeze through a hot afternoon, like a soft rain on a stifling day, like a quiet voice of truth in a room full of noise. That energy does not come from how many books you have read, how long you've meditated, or how much theory you understand. It comes from how deeply you have gone. So deep that you no longer react out of habit, no longer speak what is not true, no longer retreat every time you are hurt. You stay. You breathe through the tension. You no longer make yourself a victim of your emotions, but you also don't pretend to be a hero. You are simply a human learning to live more fully, little by little, and you accept that this journey will never be complete, never be perfect, but you no longer need it to be, because now, each day of living, as long as it is real, as long as you can breathe, as long as you can feel, is already a gift. And you know, there is no such thing as ordinary. Every breath you take, every time your eyes still see the sky, every moment you realize your heart can still be moved, is something sacred. It needs no explanation, no reason, only gratitude, only presence, only a willingness to live with it, as fully as you can, in this moment. The only moment you truly have. The only moment you truly are. When you live with such presence, you begin to realize, not everything needs solving. Not every question needs an answer. Not every emotion needs naming or analysis. There are things that, when you strive to understand, they drift away from their essence. And there are things that, only when you stop, sit quietly, stop resisting, stop analyzing, begin to reveal themselves just as they are, unforced, unfiltered, no longer carrying your preconceptions or expectations. In that moment, you see everything clearly, effortlessly, just like water becomes transparent when left undisturbed. Your mind, too, no longer clouded by fear or habitual reactivity. You stop being carried away by endless thoughts. You watch them pass like clouds, falling leaves, distant birdsong, and you are no longer their victim, but the witness, the presence, bright and still, without explanation, and in that presence, you begin to understand what before you only heard in words, that no happiness resides in the future. No peace is granted by controlling others or your circumstances. And no one can save you, except yourself. And you don't have to become someone else to deserve it. You just need to return and sit with all that you are, not perfect, not consistent, not always strong, but real. Enough, and deep enough that no one can reach you unless you allow it. Then you realize everything you've been seeking outside, acceptance, love, understanding, begins within. How you look at yourself, the way you speak to yourself when you fail, the way you hold yourself when hurt, the way you stay with yourself, not fleeing, not berating, not demanding, but staying, with trust that if you're gentle, everything will soften. If you're patient, wounds will heal, and if you are real, life, even if not ideal, will still be worth living. Because you lived it with a heart that is no longer closed, no longer denying itself, no longer sacrificing itself for anything. And in that wholeness, you no longer search for a path. You understand. Each step you take is the path. You've come this far, not along a road, but within your own consciousness, and little by little, you realize what you thought was missing was never missing. What you were looking for far away was breathing with you every day. And what you call awakening isn't a magical flash, but the first time you dared to look at an old pain without turning away, the first time you stayed with a difficult emotion without pushing it away, the first time you stopped judging yourself good or bad. Enough or not, just recognizing you're alive, and that, in itself, is a miracle. From that place, you stop living as if everything needed to be rushed, as if you're in an invisible race with no understood finish line. You begin to slow down, breathe amid the chaos, listen not only to others but also to the silence within. And when that silence unfolds, you remember what you've long forgotten, that you don't have to do anything to matter. Don't need to make an impression. Don't need to make someone understand, because listening to yourself is true understanding. Staying with yourself is real love. And when you're genuine with yourself, you don't need anyone else to understand you, because if someone is still quiet enough to touch you, they will feel your light, not the light of someone perfected, but the light of someone living mindfully among the fragments of everyday life, among minor disappointments, among unmet expectations, and still choosing softness, choosing openness, choosing to let go instead of clutching, choosing to keep loving life even when it has hurt you. And that choice, quiet yet profound, is the sign of someone stepping into life from a new state, a state no longer driven by the need to reach somewhere, but wanting only to live deeply in each present moment. Then you are no longer swept along by life. You no longer fear losing things, because you know, nothing is truly lost if you've lived it fully. Nothing truly matters if you must sacrifice yourself to keep it. What belongs with you will stay or return, in its own way, by the universe. What doesn't belong, you holding it only drains the light growing within you. And that light isn't born of achievement, but of the peace you touch when you experience an ordinary day and whisper, "This is enough." The deeper you go, the more you realize you don't need to become someone else to find peace. Peace never rested in transforming yourself by someone else's standards. It lives in genuine acceptance of who you are. And you begin to understand that some sadness does not need hasty healing. Some wounds do not require fixing. Some conflicts need not be resolved, they just need you to stay. To be present, to breathe with them, because when you stop trying to fix, stop demanding clarity, things naturally reorder themselves so your heart can understand intuitively rather than intellectually. And then you stop seeking something special to hold on to, because you begin to notice subtle beauty in the smallest moments. A morning when no one calls you. A solitary meal with yourself. A gentle rain you no longer resist. An old road that feels soft under your feet. And these are not grand moments. But they carry deep healing. They require nothing of you. Need no explanation. Don't demand positivity or strength. Just your presence, whole, sincere, unhurried. And then you recognize, presence itself is the greatest gift you can offer life, not technical skill, nor achievement, nor acclaim, but a human presence full of humility, empathy, understanding. And from that place, you do not live as someone still searching. You live as someone who sees the path in each step. Who sees light even in the darkest times? Who feels the invisible connection between all those moments you once thought were random, wrong, meaningless? You understand. Nothing is superfluous in this life, not the pain, not the getting lost, not the people who came and went. They are all the material that forged the person you are today. Not perfect, but someone who knows how to pause, listen, tenderly observe life with eyes softened. Know how to love yourself even if you were never taught. Know how to forgive what never received an apology. And you understand. Just by sitting here, breathing, and reading these lines, is proof you are returning to yourself, quietly yet deeply. You don't need anyone to know that. You don't need recognition. Because you know, you are on the right path. No guidepost needed. Because the true path isn't outside. It lies within your own heart. And then you will also realize that, in this world where everything seems to move too fast, where news, images, pressure, and expectations surround you from morning till night, simply stopping and sitting still on a quiet afternoon becomes the bravest act. Not in the sense of facing danger, but in the courage to stop running from yourself, to stop pretending you're okay, to stop urgently clinging to things that are slipping away. You begin to see slowing down not as failure, but as each pause is a door opening, not to something outside, but directly inward, to parts of yourself you long abandoned, in rushing, in comparisons, in the many times you felt not enough. From that moment, you begin relearning how to notice subtle signals deep within your body and soul. A vague ache around your left chest. A shy tear without knowing why. A breath catching when an old memory surfaces. And you no longer brush these away as obstacles. You stop blaming yourself for not being strong enough. Instead, you sit quietly with them, tenderly, like a true friend at the side of someone you love. No need to explain, no need to fix, no need to do anything, just stay. With deep faith that presence itself is enough. When you are fully present with yourself, you will no longer feel loneliness, because you come to know, the deepest loneliness doesn't come from being alone, but from the inability to stay with yourself. And now that you have learned to truly sit with yourself, and stay without rushing, without burying yourself in more noise, without covering up, you discover, Nothing can scare you any longer. Because you know, you can walk through anything. Not because you are strong, but because you are real. Not because you are capable, but because you accept your pain, your exhaustion, your confusion, and that unguarded acknowledgement, without armor, without reason, is the foundation of the deepest, most lasting transformation, like earth after rain, which softens, breathes, and waits for tiny seeds to sprout. You too, with enough stillness, enough authenticity, can see that what you once considered limitations, pains, weaknesses, they become roots for a new life to rise, not loudly, not for show, just by living honestly, gently, and never abandoning yourself again. One day, when you no longer ask, "What do I have to do to be peaceful?" but instead simply grow quiet and let peace find you, you will start to sense a delicate, true wave tenderly caressing your heart. Not from someone else, not from some grand event, but because you stopped rushing. You stopped forcing. You stopped insisting that you must understand, overcome, achieve, prove your worth. And from that moment on, you no longer need to control everything to feel safe, because true safety doesn't come from the outside world being calm, but from within you, no longer losing yourself amid countless worries. You no longer say, "I will be okay if," but simply, "Right now, I am breathing, and that is enough." And when you absorb this simplicity, you don't see life as a battle you must win, but as a long lesson, one that you grow into, soften into, learn to step back from. Then you see clearly. What you truly need was never more. Faster, better, but lighter, quieter, more genuine, and closer to yourself. You begin to let go of noisy conversations meant to drown out your inner emptiness. You stop performing to be liked. And you no longer fear losing people, because if you live honestly with yourself, the true ones will stay. And if someone leaves, it's not because you're not good enough, it's because they can't follow someone who is becoming awake. And that's not anyone's fault. These partings are necessary, timely, like petals falling not from hatred, but because it's the time to release. And in release, a cycle is completed, an experience is enriched, a deeper meaning emerges, one you didn't see when you were too busy holding on, too scared of losing. Now you learn to trust. What needs to come to you will come when it's ready, and what needs to leave will leave when you can't hold it anymore. You let life flow naturally, no pushing, no forcing, no interference, but gently remain. Like a leaf falling where it needs to. Like the moon staying full whether anyone looks at it or not. Like your heart beating quietly even when you forget to notice. And that is how life loves you, not loudly, not demanding, just waiting for you to stop, listen, and trust. You will see, everything has been waiting there for you, just waiting for you to release and return. And when you arrive here, not by footsteps, but by enough silence, by enough right pauses, by breaths you once thought insignificant, you will sense a softening inside. Some inner resistance relaxes. Some worry stops repeating. You won't remember exactly when it changed, but you will just know. Something in you has softened, opened, melted, like snow under spring sun, without sound, without announcement, without a miracle, just time and sustained presence. Thus you see, everything you once tried to control, once had to fully understand, once had to master, all eventually lies outside your hands. And that is no longer your insecurity, but a relief. Because you don't have to shoulder the role of controller anymore. You just need to be part of the flow, not directing. Not resisting, but consciously and steadily yielding to change. And you begin to cherish moments when you do nothing. Just sit. Place your hand on your chest. Feel your heartbeat. And think of someone who once loved you with their eyes without words. Or recall a time you forgave without needing gratitude. Or simply notice a tiny branch growing at the corner of a wall, and realize that life always continues. Always moves. Always grows, regardless of whether you are okay or not. Whether you are ready or not. And the only lesson you truly need isn't how to control the current of life, but how to step back and become transparent, so you no longer block the flow of life. No longer build walls that prevent you from touching what is here. Because only once you stop, let go of reasons, stop searching for some new direction, stop pushing yourself to be something. You can clearly see. You already had everything, it's just you had never stayed long enough to notice. And when you truly stay, you will know. You don't need to change anything more to be at peace. Just learn to greet truth with a gentle gaze. With a heart no longer afraid. With a presence that judges nothing, and that is enough. Enough for a life that is not seeking happiness, but living within it, each day, each moment, each breath. And when you have weathered enough waves, passed through enough shadows, endured enough days that felt unbearable, you will gradually understand that awakening does not arrive like a raging fire, but as a very small, gentle light that slips through the crevices of your consciousness. It does not illuminate with noise, but through quiet presence. No sermon, no label saying, "This is enlightenment," but simply causing your heart to soften, your gaze to become less harsh, your heartbeat to slow in the face of the uncontrollable. And then you begin to live differently, not because you've achieved something grand, but because you have seen clearly. There is no need to rush, no need to search, no need to be right to be loved, no need to be capable to be accepted. You, just as you are worthy of gentle breathing, of slow living, of existing without being forced into another shape. And from that place, you stop asking, "What must I do to find peace?" and instead simply ask, "Today, have I truly stayed with myself?" If the answer is yes, you understand. That is enough. If the answer is no, you know. It's okay, you can start again. Return. Sit down, not requiring reasons or conditions. Simply because your heart deserves to be heard. Loved without fixing. Allowed to exist without needing to impress. When you dare to live in this way, even if the world around you doesn't understand, you may be called unusual, too sensitive, too quiet. You no longer feel the need to defend or explain yourself. Because you have understood. The awakened person is not superior, but someone who dares to stay with what others avoid, dares to remain silent when others need noise to fill gaps, dares to be patient when life is not smooth, dares to do nothing while knowing they are not useless. You know that there are times when silence is the greatest action. Listening is the deepest healing. And presence is the most honest gift you can offer, not only to others but to the parts of you that once were lost, rejected, crying in silence. And now, when you are slow, gentle, and sincere enough, all those forgotten parts step forward, trembling but hopeful, to be seen. Not judged, but embraced, as if hugging a child returning home. If you live long enough with that unconditional presence, You will find you no longer need a reason to feel whole. You don't need to construct a perfect self to persuade anyone to love you. You don't need to brace yourself in conversations just to appear smarter, more positive, stronger. Instead, you become very still, very ordinary, very simple, like a small room with a window opening to a garden. Nothing outstanding, but anyone who enters feels lighter. You no longer want to be a brilliant street lamp, just a small shimmer in someone's palm when they feel lost. And you will stop comparing yourself to others, not because you are superior, but because you understand everyone's journey is entirely different, impossible to measure, rank, or label. When you look at others without comparison, you begin to look at yourself with the same compassion. You stop blaming yourself, stop forcing yourself, stop hurting yourself with inner whispers like, "I'm not enough. I should do better. Why am I so weak?" And you understand, even in your moments of losing direction, making mistakes, saying the wrong things, you still deserve to be held and given a chance to heal and begin again, not because of who you are, but because you are human, learning how to be human in this challenging life. When you feel that, you begin to live differently. You slow down when others rage. You soften when someone yells. You step back when people scramble for more, not because you are weak, but because you know behind all reaction lies an unnamed fear, an unspoken hurt. You understand this world doesn't need more winners. It needs more people who know how to stop. Breathe. Enter the space between reaction and choice, where there is enough stillness to break habitual responses, and respond with presence, understanding, kindness. And if you can live like that every day, in every word you speak, every action you choose, every person you touch, then life itself will soften when it passes through you. Like a breeze pausing to stroke a flower. Like water branching to avoid sweeping away a bird's nest. Like light dimming so as not to blind someone opening their eyes after a long night. And you become part of that gentleness, an unassuming presence that no longer needs praise or memory, yet leaves a deep, quiet mark on the heart of others. The longer you live in that unconditional presence, the more you internalize a truth you once only heard. Everything truly has its place, nothing is excessive. No one is a mistake. No emotion must be pushed away, not anger, not worry, not loneliness, not despair, because all are parts of growing. And if you are brave enough to look directly at them, to not chase them away or suppress them, you see, beneath those rough exteriors are the soft parts of your soul, once wounded, abandoned, forced to grow up too soon, forced to smile when you weren't okay. And you will realize you don't need to rush healing. You don't need to claim a badge of being done. Already know how to love, fully at peace. For wanting that becomes another pressure that distances you from truth. You might still fragile, still lost, still carrying parts you cannot yet speak, and that's okay. True awakening does not demand you become someone always right. It asks you become someone always real. Always soft. Always quiet enough to hear the faint whisper within. The echo of what's been buried too long. Now daring to speak. And when you learn to never abandon that voice again, you begin to treat yourself differently. You stop harsh self-talk. Stop ignoring your insecurity. Stop pretending to be positive when inside you're chaotic. Stop avoiding old wounds, and you no longer rush to get past them. Instead, you embrace walking slowly with them. walking with the parts of yourself you thought were lost, with the emotions no one has touched, with the things you once felt shame about. And the more you walk, the lighter you feel, not because everything has improved, but because you no longer need everything to improve in order to live in peace. You begin to know how to live even when things are unfinished. Open your heart even when you haven't found answers. Breathe steadily even in chaos. And that, in silence, is the deepest internal revolution you've ever made. No triumphant ceremony, no external applause, but for the first time in a long time, you have not turned your back on yourself. When the silence within you becomes strong enough, you no longer need to prove anything. You don't have to show anyone you're okay. You don't have to explain why you choose to live differently. You don't have to force yourself into meaningless gatherings. You don't hold on to relationships just to fill a void. Instead, you begin attending to the small things right in front of you. Morning birdsong, sunlight filtering through leaves, the breeze touching wooden doors. Those seemingly minor things become where you rediscover yourself. Presence ceases to be a vague concept and becomes a natural state. No longer driven by wants or fears. Things still happen, but you no longer respond mechanically. When sadness arises, you no longer immediately forget it. When joy comes, you don't need to hold it forever. You let things arrive as they will, depart as they must, without force, without possession. In that state, you may not always be blissful, but you are real, and that is enough. Because truth does not need adornment. It only needs to be seen, named, breathed with. As you sit quietly on a still afternoon, wanting nothing more, just listening, and the miracle is, the less you want, the more your heart opens. Not because you have achieved anything, but because you have stopped resisting. You let go, not by giving up, but like a leaf that has grown old enough not to resist the wind. From there, you become still but not cold, deep but not heavy, tranquil but not dissociated, a rooted, inner calm that cannot be borrowed from anyone else. Sometimes, you realize you've been living for so long without truly being present. You've walked familiar paths, talked with close ones, done so many things every day, but still feel absent in your own life. Not because you did not try, but because no one taught you how to stay. Stay in the moment, stay with yourself, stay with the full emotion without rushing away. Your mind, from childhood to adulthood, learned to chase achievements, standards, and expectations. But the more you ran, the more you became weary. The more you struggled, the more you drifted away from your gentle essence. Only when you became truly exhausted did you stop, not because you gave up, but because you saw clearly. No external road will bring you home unless you've turned inward. And when you begin to learn how to really stop, even for a minute, everything changes. A gentle breeze can move you. A bird's song can well up tears in your eyes. A simple look can soften your heart. No need for grandeur, no miracles needed, just deep presence, and the simplest things become sacred. Amazingly, you begin to live as if grateful for every moment alive. Grateful for your legs that still walk, your eyes that still see light, your imperfect body that has carried you for years. You stop blaming yourself for past weakness. You stop shaming yourself for trusting the wrong person. You let go of what no longer needs holding. It all becomes part of your journey, a journey each of us walks, falls, rises, and then gently loves ourselves through. No one walks it for you. No one understands you better than you do. No one knows your deepest hidden pain. But you do not need others to understand anymore. You only need yourself to finally dare to look back, without judgment. Without turning away, and accept the person you are. Not perfect. Not always strong, but real enough. Still, deep enough, so that you no longer want to be anyone else. After you begin living slowly, you start hearing sounds that once passed unnoticed. Water dripping from the eaves. Wind running through tall trees. A quiet footstep passing through your life without farewells. You no longer fret over keeping people around. Nor do you need explanations for what cannot be continued. Because you have understood that people do not always leave because they love you less. Sometimes they simply lack the courage to stay with someone who is learning to live authentically. And you, after all, harbor no blame. You do not hold them with resentment, but with gratitude, because through them, you have learned how to hold yourself. Perhaps you once felt unbearably empty one afternoon, not knowing who to call or what to do with the growing sadness in your chest. But instead of hiding it, you allowed it to stay. You made a cup of tea, opened the window, and sat still, letting sadness just be present. Not to change it, simply to show it you would not turn your back. And it is from moments like these that you come to see real growth does not come from theories or success. It comes when you dare to be alone with all that you have tried to forget. You stop running. You stop hiding. You stop performing. You breathe. You look. You touch old wounds like stroking a stray cat, gently, slowly, unhurriedly, because you know that if you are gentle enough, it will stop scratching. It will rest in your heart, sleeping a long sleep, melting into a new life budding in you. And then you realize you do not need a special event to change your life. You just need enough stillness to notice that the ordinary is nourishing you. A ray of sunshine on your hand, a stranger's smile on the street, a dry leaf spinning in the wind and landing at your feet. Each of these small things, if you are awake enough, is a miracle, quiet, nameless. All it takes is your presence, no role, no expectation, just yourself, breathing lightly, unhurried, not needing to be someone else. And in that simplicity, you feel freer than ever. When you start living in that state, not avoiding, not forcing, not clinging, you discover a vast inner space opened within you. Not emptiness bringing loneliness, but potential space to reassess what truly matters. Old questions that once drained you, like, what must I do to be recognized? Or, when will I be enough? Or, am I on the right path? No longer feel urgent. Because instead of seeking answers outside, you learn to listen within. No teacher taught you this. No sermon pointed the way. Yet with a truly still moment, you discover the answers you once sought were already in the place you most avoided, inside. In the silent space of your soul. Not analyzed by reason, but known by the heart. Knowing what you need. Knowing who you are. Knowing what moves you. Knowing when to continue. And when to stop. And you begin to see, peace is not a destination. It is the way you walk. Not a perfected state to win through endless effort. But the acceptance that even when not okay, you can live kindly with yourself. Even when not enough, you can be gentle toward your journey. Even when your heart is confused, you can breathe deeply and say to yourself, it is okay. I am still here. That presence, quiet, unremarkable, is the deepest gift you can offer yourself. And then you also stop expecting others to understand. to stay, to change for you. You stop setting conditions for love, even for self-love. All you want is to live honestly. No hiding, no proving, no borrowing definitions from someone else. You do not need to be like anyone else, successful like them, peaceful like them, awakened like what you have read. You begin to understand. Your journey is unique, cannot be copied, cannot be skipped past. Every stumble shreds off a layer. Every silence opens a new depth. Every slow breath brings you closer to what truly matters, not in the future, but here, in this moment, as you read these words, without hurry, without rushing to finish. It might feel like the first time in years that you are not running from yourself anymore. Sometimes, you learn something more important than changing everything around you. You learn to change how you are present with it. You no longer blame life for being too hard, people for being too complicated, or yourself for being too fragile. You simply observe things as they are. You do not label or categorize. If you feel pain, you feel it. If you are tired, you rest. If you need a hug, you offer yourself one. When you allow emotions to exist exactly as they are, without forcing them to be positive or masking them with false reassurance, you discover something miraculous. Sadness, when fully acknowledged, will settle on its own. Hurt, when met without avoidance, will close up gently. You stop needing to heal everything, because deep presence is the most natural remedy. It requires no high technique, no temple, no bells or chants. You only need courage to stay when it becomes uncomfortable. You just need to remain, not by adopting a formal meditation pose, but by being fully present in everyday moments, washing dishes, folding shirts, looking at the sky, listening to someone tell a story. When you live like that, every small task holds a silent beauty. You will find yourself no longer impulsive, no longer compelled to respond immediately, no longer reacting unconsciously just because you feel triggered. You learn to pause a beat, to go quiet before answering. And sometimes, you choose silence, not because you have nothing to say, but because you know. Words, if not born from mindfulness, are like wind stirring muddy water. And then you begin to love silence. You stop fearing it as before. Silence ceases to be an empty space to dread, and instead becomes the fertile ground where truth can emerge. In that stillness, you realize you once lived too hurriedly, loved too fast, hurt too deeply, simply because you never stayed. But now it is different. You learn how to sit quietly without expecting anything to happen. You do not need transcendent spiritual experiences or elevated sensations. You only need to sit beside yourself as you would with a dear old friend after a lifetime of journeys. And you are surprised to see, in that simplicity, your heart begins to revive, not through grand reasons, but through small moments, when you do not betray your emotions, hide the truth, or pretend to be strong. Awakening, it turns out, is very ordinary. It does not make you more perfect, but more honest, not to others, but to yourself. No one needs to notice or confirm it. You just know, you are back. Quiet, but not retreating. Gentle, but not weak. Soft, yet as steadfast as an unseen mountain that continues to support every passing season. There are days when you need no more answers. You simply want to breathe in a space where nobody judges you. Nobody urges you to be stronger. Nobody asks what comes next. A quiet moment, a window opening to sky, a warm blanket over cold feet. and your own gentle presence. These are enough to soften the driest parts of your heart. And in that place, where you no longer force everything into words, where unspoken things dissolve naturally, you understand. Healing is not transforming yourself into a flawless version without scars, but learning to live tenderly with the wounds. Some pain never fully disappears. Some stories have no neat ending. Some parts of the past will always cast a faint shadow in your heart. But instead of trying to erase them, you choose to keep them, not for bitterness, but to remind yourself that you have lived, you have trusted, loved, and lost, and in that truth, you learn to savor the present more deeply. You no longer replay the past. You no longer live in the future. You learn to stay fully with what is, just like drinking water when you are thirsty, without overanalyzing its source or comparing its flavor. Simply feeling. Every present moment becomes an unwrapped gift. The longer you stay present, the more you realize life does not need to be extraordinary to be worth living. It only needs to be lived authentically, without pressure, without embellishment. A normal day can become profound if you are truly there, sitting in a familiar room, with light casting across a wooden table, listening to wind brushing curtains, feeling your heartbeat slow down. Sometimes that is enough to fill you with gratitude for being alive, for having another chance to return to yourself, without reason, not for anyone else, not to become better, just because you begin to understand. You do not have to be worthy in others' eyes to deserve your own affection. And when that self-love becomes natural, given freely each day, you become lighter, softer, more serene, not because life got easier, but because you stopped fighting yourself. You no longer argue with reality. You no longer withdraw from true emotion. You stay. You listen. You accompany yourself, and in that companionship, you realize you are not alone. You only need yourself, present, whole, and unyielding. Then you will reach a point where you realize healing does not occur in dramatic moments or unexpected breakthroughs, but quietly emerges from ordinary things. It happens when you stop blaming yourself for not being strong enough. When you can sit with a cup of tea and resist the urge to check your phone. When you step outside not to search for something, but simply to feel the sun on your shoulders. So gentle you cannot even say what day it is. You no longer crave victory. And you no longer want to compete. You begin to withdraw from conversations that exhaust you. Relationships that require you to struggle to be loved. Places that made you feel you needed to belong. Not out of anger or pride, but because you understand. Some things do not need to be held to prove anything. You no longer yearn to be understood, or long for someone to listen to your entire story. You learn to speak less, more meaningfully. You learn the right time to let go. You learn to let things end without a scripted goodbye. You learn to stand up, dust yourself off, and move forward, without hurting anyone, and without abandoning yourself. At that point, you feel a tenderness grow inside. The very tenderness you once looked for in others now blossoms in your own heart. A heart no longer racing, no longer desperate for understanding, only desiring to live fully in each moment unfolding. You listen to surrounding sounds not as background noise, but as part of the flow you belong to. The sound of a falling leaf becomes familiar as a breath. A cat's meow across the yard can make you smile. You do not need grand things to feel you are living meaningfully. A simple meal, a quiet afternoon, a folded blanket on the bed. All these if seen with ungathered eyes. Become complete, and then you find yourself no longer fearing silence. Because that silence is no longer an emptiness to fill, it is the home you have returned to. A place nobody can see, but you know it is real. A place that requires no announcement, no declaration. Your being there is enough. Even though the world outside keeps changing, and tomorrow you may still face many challenges, you hold onto a part of you that is clear, not shaken. A part that no one can take away. A part you sought for so long. It now quietly sits there, waiting for you to come back. Without blame, without coldness, only reaching out with tenderness as if the separation never happened. One morning, you wake up on your own, not because of an alarm clock. Not because of something you have to do. Not because of responsibilities or fear of being late, but simply because you have slept enough, and your body has chosen the moment to return to the day. You do not reach for your phone right away. You lie still for a moment, listening to the first sounds of the morning, perhaps the rumble of cars on the street, the distant crowing of roosters, or simply the rustle of wind through the window cracks. You allow your mind to rest in emptiness. No planning, no predictions, no replaying yesterday. Just breathing, lightly, fully, as if you are living for the first time. In a day when no one expects anything from you, not even yourself. And in that quiet, you sense that life is not a list of tasks to complete, but something unfolding, very real, very close, not demanding anything beyond your mere presence. You slide out of bed as if touching the earth with fresh, new feet. Pour water into a glass as if it is a sacred ritual for a soul returned from a long dream. You do not rush, not out of laziness, but because you want to feel each movement fully. Without being pushed by habit, you are living, not in grand ways, but in each small gesture. And you realize, those small things are truly what life is. We have grown used to assigning importance only to major moments, graduations, love, heartbreaks, success. But deep inside, you probably always knew that the most healing moments are the ones that are nothing special, no incidents, no climaxes, because those are the moments you truly recover. Nobody applauds you for washing dishes in silence. Nobody praises you for smiling at the first bloom on your balcony. But those moments sustain you. Help you remain rooted in a world that would otherwise sweep you far from yourself. And so you stop seeking grand things. Not because you have stopped dreaming, but because you have found wonder in simplicity. When you live this way, you do not have to try to inspire others or become a role model. Your full presence, in a perfectly ordinary day, is enough to remind anyone who has lost themselves in the race of life that they too can pause. They too can start again. They do not need to do anything special. Just return, slowly, just like you are. When you slow down and release the need to be perfect, you notice what is so easily overlooked. You observe the shifting light through the day, from soft morning yellow to pale afternoon orange, to cool purple dusk. You really see a person's face when you listen without interrupting. You feel the gentle ache in your shoulders as your body's reminder after days of neglect. You gradually realize that your mind does not need to keep doing more, it needs to do less. Less worry, less striving, less analysis. You stop trying to control your emotions and begin to live with them like old friends, not fearing them, not avoiding them. When you are sad, you do not force yourself to change your mood. you let yourself be sad. When you feel lonely, you do not hurry to fill the emptiness. You sit with the quiet as if listening to an empty room. And the miracle is, when you stop resisting emotions, they stop controlling you. They become passing clouds that neither stay nor derail you. You no longer fuse your identity with what comes and goes. You no longer define yourself by your past stories, wounds, achievements, or failures. You begin to feel like a vast sky, capable of containing anything, yet not defined by any single thing. And then, you stop trying to become. You do not need to be the best. You do not need the most love. You do not need to leave a mark. You only need to live fully, without rushing, without regret. And the more you live this way, the more you realize beautiful things do not arrive because you force them. They arrive when you make yourself worthy of receiving them. Not because you perform correctly, but because you have the courage to live truthfully. You will discover that peace does not depend on external smoothness, but on no longer needing things to go your way in order to feel enough. You can smile even when your day is ordinary. You can say thank you even when no one hears. You can place your hand on your chest, breathe slowly, and whisper, "I have come home." No audience, no clear outcome, just you knowing that this moment, though unseen, is deeply sacred. And this is how you live, not to achieve something grand, but to never lose yourself again. In the end, you realize you do not need to go far to find peace. It is not hidden in the future, not concealed in high mountains or wide oceans, not disguised by glamorous things or others' praise. True peace only gently knocks when you stop, breathe slowly, and have the courage to sit still with yourself, without hiding, judging, or fixing. Every single moment you live truthfully, without forcing, without chasing, is a step home. A step toward home. And that place was never lost, you just forgot the way. Now you have found it again. Not with reason, but with the silent presence within. You realize that you do not need to be perfect to be worthy. You do not need to be too talented, too strong, too captivating. You only need to be present. Be yourself. Be enough. If these moments have given you calm, lightness, or simply the feeling of being accompanied, give yourself permission to hold onto it a little longer. Do not rush back to the old pace of life. Keep a little stillness in your heart, like a quiet corner untouched by anyone, where you can return at any time. Thank you for your full presence on this journey. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to our channel to continue accompanying us on the next journeys, where every word is a step toward healing. Every story is a bell of awakening. And if you know someone who needs this kind of stillness, do not hesitate to share this video with them, because sometimes a gentle passage can be where someone begins returning to themselves. May you have a peaceful night, a deep sleep, and wake tomorrow with a serene heart. Until next time.